So from the observation, the past two observations, I just wanted to share some things with you to get started. With writing, we were talking before about writing.
Yeah.
And as being a focus for moving forward, like trying to make an improvement. So that's why I observed the two writing lessons. And some things that I noticed work really great is having the kids kind of brainstorm together
Mm-hmm.
and with the chart paper, and they were coming up with all the different ideas for the small moments, and they really enjoyed that part. And then going back and like with both times, I noticed that was something that like going back and coming up with their own idea, they kind of like get stuck
Right.
in their own, like, and they'll hear someone say something,
Yeah.
and now they're stuck with like making a story about a park. And like it just
Exactly.
and then
Yeah.
I went to the park with my aunt, I went to the park with my brother, I went to the park with my sister, and everyone's at the park, and everyone's story is about a park.
Right.
So I can see where stretching their ideas and coming up with details might be an area to focus on. Is there an area in writing that you feel like maybe they need, I don't know, like is there somewhere that with the writing that you want to see more growth in?
Yeah.
That
I always feel like them elaborating on what they're writing, like the park, for example. In situations like that, also like them writing in a whole group can be a challenge. So even like you saw, like I introduced it to the full group, and then I like to normally just take a few at a time to write, because then I can support them and kind of answer individual questions and kind of help to guide them when they need guidance. So if they get stuck, I might just start to ask them some questions. Like, let's not think about what you want to write. Let's think about, just tell me about being at the park and some experiences. And it'll kind of naturally just flow where they start talking about being at the park, and they'll start off really basic, like, oh, I go on the swings and I go on the slide, and before you know it, they start telling you like a specific time that something happened. And if not, you could ask them, can you think about one time, like something really special that happened at the park? And when they start getting to that point, you'll see their eyes kind of light up. And you never recommend to them, like, that's what you want to write, but say, just observe and say, hi, I noticed you got really excited when you talked about that time when you were on the slide and someone came down like quickly behind you and it made you jump. What do you think about telling your readers that? What do you think about sharing that? Do you think that would be something that you would want to tell others? And so you're kind of allowing them to see what they're really capable of writing. But at first we don't look at it that way, because the writing sometimes tends to intimidate them a little bit until they get comfortable.
Yeah, so getting them to take that idea and stretch it the way they would say it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Through conversation.
Yeah.
And then also they can, once they feel more comfortable, that will happen with partners. So they start meeting with someone in class that becomes a regular writing buddy. And then they start knowing what to ask each other when someone gets stuck. So then it's not always coming from the teacher, but they learn to help and support one another.
Yeah, that's a great idea, buddy. So,
I know all that loud work we're getting, all the construction.
That's an interesting noise.
Yeah.
So with that, it sounds like you are seeing, you're like having a lot of successes with them, with bringing their experiences into their writing. Is there an area that you feel like you, where you feel like maybe you want them to be at a point now that they're not quite there yet, that we could try to maybe brainstorm some ideas to focus on?
Well, this seems to happen so often. I'd like them to, get to the point where they just have to feel comfortable about getting started and willing to take, the risk, and it's okay to make the mistakes.
Okay. So getting started,
Just jumping in,
yeah.
not overthinking it too much, but just willing to just start and get down your ideas,
Mhm.
because then you can always go back. And I guess what I'm saying is that when kids write, they're not quite seeing themselves as going back and revising and making improvements. They think, okay, I've written this, I'm done.
Mm-hmm.
Or they're not happy with it and they still think that it's done. But just them
'Cause they
being
finished the
okay to
sentence.
just, getting in there and realizing, I don't have to keep what I have. I can make changes to it.
Mm-hmm. So
Yeah.
what kind of changes, if you could get them to that point,
Mhm.
what kinds of things would you like to see them add?
Yeah. Well, I'd like to see them look at their writing from a different place, maybe as a reader might hear it, and decide what more would they need to say there, or what isn't understandable. Sometimes it does help with the
Like
buddy.
the details?
Yeah,
Like
sometimes like a buddy hearing it, they might have some questions, and they can go from there. And also, sometimes it's neat if they can, I'd like to have some more time where they can maybe record and watch themselves hear the
Mhm.
story. We've done that
Mhm.
before. And something about them hearing their story, or even someone else reading it, so they can kind of take a different perspective.
Yeah.
Because you don't always see it when you're doing it.
Have they done, did you say they have?
We've done it, not off, it's been a while, so that's a goal of mine. I'd like to try to get to that point. I feel like this time of the year is good, because in the beginning of the year, they're just starting out and they don't have a lot of experience. But by now, we've done so much with the writing where we could try a little bit more with them.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, as a goal,
Mhm.
because it sounds like you have a lot of great strategies in place and routines that it sounds like they're used to a routine with writing.
Yes.
So in keeping that routine,
Right.
we can maybe try to add something into that could help push towards like one specific goal, that could help just draw out a little bit more from them. That, like, what I'm hearing from you is that you just want them to reflect on their writing, to just pull a little bit more in hearing themselves and reading how it sounds, stuff like that.
I feel like, as you're saying, it's reminding me of something that I learned. I was a part of the Pennsylvania Writing and Literature Project, and they taught us that we have to look at ourselves as teachers, as writers.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very helpful for them to see you working at writing and seeing the challenges that you go through, and they get to see how you would improve upon your story. And so them seeing, you as a writer, and you seeing yourself as a writer is so important. Sometimes we don't look at ourselves in that way, but it's really important, because if you're not taking the opportunities to write yourself, you're not going to really realize what challenges your students are facing.
Right.
So it is important. I felt like there was a time where I was spending more time writing, and this reminds me that is a goal for myself. I feel like I'm adding, all these different goals, but
No,
that
it's
is
great.
something
It's
that,
all connected.
Yeah.
And I feel like from this, pulling out that one, it's helping to come up with that one
Right.
specific thing that, while there are successes in it, maybe we can just, focus on trying to get them to stretch.
Yeah.
Just to stretch it out a little bit.
Right.
But, would you say that a goal for your writing might be, I don't know, I guess
I
that
want to show them more too. I want them. I think before I can have them try some of these things on their own, like we talked about buddies, you build up to that, or anything where they're recording. They're not really always sure what to see, but let them see something that I've written. I share something that I've written, and rather than it being like the final piece, them to see me go back and do my revising, how I go about that whole thought process.
Mhm.
And I could jot that down so they can see that. And I can really say with writing, it doesn't become internal overnight. It takes, like with everything else, it just takes a lot of time. But that really does tend to, it makes them feel more comfortable about writing, and it actually makes you feel more comfortable as a teacher to present what you're doing.
Right.
Because sometimes we're just teaching them, but we're not a part of the learning. And that doesn't make sense when it comes to a lot of things, especially writing, so kind of get in there.
That's reminding me of, I was looking up some ideas for things, and these are some of the Lucy Calkins things. I think this goes with Lucy Calkins. I mean, we were just talking the other day about this, about how I was just saying I wish that it was more in a lesson form. Do you feel like this is lesson 1? Bold Beginnings.
Mentor text is always important. So
and that's what I thought of this one, because what you're
too.
saying with your writing, showing them more of your writing, showing them your vulnerability with all of that, and that's what made me think of this, because all of these lessons kind of go in order to build up the different skills to be a writer using mentor texts.
It's huge, because you can always, zoom in on that, an example. So if the kids are struggling with expanding upon an idea, we're really bringing into the small moment. And that's what I always liked about the writing workshop, is they would recommend stories. So like sometimes we want it like a little broken down for us, but and then you can always take books and label them with sticky notes and say, this is a great book to use for, because sometimes you can't think in the moment. You're like, oh, I need a book, I don't have one. But if you have a basket of books specifically for a writing workshop, you can always add to that. So that out.
It just seemed to go with that Lucy Calkins. I didn't print out the cover page that said what each lesson was for, but it did follow that with the small moments and all those other, I have some of them here still too. So I think that that's a great idea with taking this mentor text into what you're saying with, you could, as a writer, be like a mentor, like use your own text as like a mentor text. So through observing and everything in our conversation now, I feel like a goal I'm hearing from you is that you just want to see them stretch their ideas, do more.
Absolutely.
And how can we get them to do that? What can we try? We have, you sounds like you were
mentor text. And
using mentor text.
Modeling. Considering yourself, a writer, being a writer.
Okay. This was another, I was kind of started to show you this a little bit yesterday, but I like the way that this goes through. There's several lessons, and it's I do, we do, you do, and this stretches it. So you show them that you wrote a sentence, the dog ran, and then you want to add a detail. So this is the senses. So through all the senses now you added the brown dog ran, or for smelling, the stinky dog ran, the quiet dog ran. So then you do one together, start with a simple sentence, and then let them try one on their own.
I haven't seen that before.
I know. I thought it was.
I think that's really understandable for them too. Yeah.
So they can practice adding that detail in. The sentence is much more interesting.
They get to watch how it grows. And they can see the difference from where they started to where where it's going.
So then it moves on. The next lesson is question details. So it goes through different lessons showing different details and how to add different details. This one with being a question, he is a boy. And then you follow the question words, which goes with our foundation.
Yes, those are all the words that we're working on.
And then who is a boy? Sam is a boy. Sam is my brother.
Okay.
So like, what is Sam? Sam is my brother. And then the third lesson goes into name details. So you would do the same process, I do, we do, you do, and have them come up with,
And that is the structure of a mini lesson,
yeah,
you know? Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's just.
I like that a lot, I haven't seen that before.
Yeah, I thought it was, a great way to maybe help them to stretch. So, I mean, we could, I'll write that down as an idea, I do, you do. So we can move forward and just try one of these
Sure.
strategies, and we could always go back and change it, do something else, and just look to see what works, what they respond to, that helps them to stretch it out.
Yeah,
So, I don't know.
definitely willing to give that a try, yeah, and we
Alright.
can talk again.
All right, yeah, we can go from there. All right, awesome.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.